Startup Hype. This is your host Tuğçe Özkan. Today we are going to interview Omer Artun, who is an accomplished entrepreneur who started, grew, sold his company AgilOne, which made a huge impact in strategy development in commerce space. Omer is an electrical engineer who has a PhD from Brown University in computational and neuroscience and physics area. Omer was an adjunct professor of marketing at NYU School of Business, teaching graduate level courses like relationship marketing and analytical marketing. Not only that, but Omer published and authored a book called Predictive Marketing. Today we are in one of his investment spaces, which is a Turkish restaurant, May House, in Sunnyvale, California. Let's go and find about him more. Welcome to Startup Hype. Thank you so much for your time. I know you're super busy and we appreciate your time. You are being here today. We are looking forward to that. I'm so thrilled to have this interview today with you.
Thanks for inviting me.
Yeah, of course. So we want to, learn more about you, your background, your whole background and success stories, and obviously all the challenges you went through. So the first thing that I want to ask is, can you tell us a little bit about AgilOne? How did you come up with this idea?
So I got my PhD from Brown in computational neuroscience, which is like machine learning and so forth. Then I worked for McKinsey for a number of years, then switched to corporate world and ran marketing for a few companies. And my whole angle was trying to bring science into marketing, so leveraging data to create better outcomes in marketing. And I realized that a lot of people were trying to figure out, how to do the same thing at scale, big companies and so forth. So I thought there would be an opportunity for me to start a company in that realm, specifically around, how to leverage customer data for better marketing outcomes. That's how I started AgilOne. So I basically was a head of marketing for a division of Best Buy, and there are multiple people that came to me and said, can you help us with this? Can you help us with that? And then I realized that it was time for me to start a company. So I bootstrapped it in the beginning for the first 5 years, took it to about 4 million in revenue, 30 people, and then moved the company over and basically said, okay, I want to transform this company from a services-led company to a product-led company. So that's when I got VC funding and started the whole genesis of AgilOne in Silicon Valley.
Yeah. So it's a big change, right? Moving from corporate side to startup side. It's a big change basically for you and for the mindset. What was your motivation to quit your day-to-day job and take this risk and move forward from there?
So there were a couple things that happened. Number one was I thought everything in the corporate world was too slow. You couldn't get things done. And even if you felt passionate about a problem, you couldn't solve it because there were corporate hierarchies, there were agendas, there were people, there's politics and so forth. So I wanted to I felt passionate about a problem. I thought this would create a lot of value. And I basically couldn't stop myself from quitting the job. So it's like jumping in the ocean without knowing how to swim. You can swim or you can sink, but you have to jump, right? So I think having a startup is that urge. Some people do startups, especially these days. They do startup because it's cool. My thought is that startup is a means to an end. It's a vehicle to solve a problem. You can solve the same problem in corporate environment. You could develop the same product at Microsoft. People don't, but you could. There are some problems that are better suited for that. But for some problems, it's better to have a startup company with no ties, with no being nimble
Just
and
faster.
faster and so forth.
Yeah.
So
Fast
that's how,
implementations.
fast implementations and so forth. That's what I thought.
Totally,
Yeah.
I understand it. And then, you know, like you grew the company like incredibly and it in a quite fast pattern actually. So like you work with Sequoia, right? And for
Yes.
those who are not familiar with Sequoia, I'll just give some background. Basically,
Sure.
Sequoia is one of the biggest venture capitalists who invested in big companies we all know, basically, maybe Apple, Airbnb, Lyft,
Yeah.
you name it. So AgilOne is one of them. So how did you approach Sequoia and how did you go through the process? Just can you tell us a little bit about the fundraising process for the beginners who are not familiar?
Yeah, so you just need to reach the right person. So I realized, you know, when I moved out here, I had a company with 30 people, like I said, almost 4 million in revenue. And I had big clients like HP and Gartner and so forth. And I needed the capital to convert it from a services-led to a product-led company. So I needed to invest ahead in product development and do product marketing and product management and so forth in a much more rigorous way. So, you know, through connections, I got to, you know, I was able to send an email to one of the partners at Sequoia, Doug Leone, who's the managing director. And he was interested in meeting with me, so I met with him, and the first thing he told me is, don't sell me your product, sell me your company, because I'm buying a piece of your company. So it's, you know, fundraising is about not selling. A lot of people approach it as they talk about the product all the time, but you should not be talking about the product. You should be talking about the company you're trying to build, how you're going to build it. Are you the right person to build it? You know, is this a big enough problem? So there are questions you need to answer in that process. So I was lucky enough, you know, Doug really liked me. The fact that I bootstrapped the company was a big thing for him. Then he brought in Mike Moritz, which is like another top name at Sequoia, and brought in other people. And it was maybe 8 to 10 meetings. With a final meeting at their partner day on Mondays. Usually VCs have partner days. So I went to that meeting and they
you got it.
You got it, yeah. So they led the first Series A round for $6 million. And then they did all the follow-on rounds as well with other, like the second round was led by Mayfield for 10 million, and the third round was led by Tenaya Capital for 25 million, and then we did another inside round for 10.
So you
total of
basically
50
continued
million.
like for a year maybe, or?
No. This was over the course. What I just described was over the course of like 6 years.
6 years.
5,
okay.
6 years. Yeah.
Yeah.
So this my first funding was 2011, and then 2012, 2014, and 2016.
And each of these phases, a lot of meetings and interviews. Basically, you need to go.
Yeah,
through.
each time you have to basically, you're going through different steps of the company, different evolutions. So in the beginning, you know, it was basically, the goal was like, can you create a product version of what we did with services, and can you sell it and so forth. The second one was more around, you know, figuring out which part of the market is this suited for, you know, enterprise or mid-market or lower end of the market and so forth. Which industries should you go after, like retail, insurance, and blah, blah, blah. And then the third round is more for scaling, like how can you build a sales team and scale it and so forth.
Sure.
So there are different things you're trying to, for every stage there's a different goal you're trying to maximize.
Yeah. So it's pretty amazing, you know.
Thank you.
I'm not very familiar with the process either, but like it sounds like it's a challenging process, and like it makes a difference for the company, right?
That
so
does.
after you went everything, basically, what was your like decision-making point that you decided, okay, this is the right time to sell the company right now, and like acquisition process has started? Like, how did that happen? Because, you know, for founders, it's like your baby or startup, so it's a hard decision.
So, so there are a couple different approaches to that. One is, first of all, your company is always for sale. Like you're basically always like for the right price. You need to look at like you're doing this for solving a problem, but if somebody values it beyond what it's worth at that point, you would sell it. So we've been approached multiple times throughout the years for different with different companies. I can't name them, but at the end there came a time where I saw where the market is going. Like there were a lot of big companies that were either starting to build or they're trying to buy, companies like us to build. We were a new service. We were basically, we were the first in a category of the market called customer data platforms, sure. And we were probably the first one to be named the CDP, like back in 2013. And then there were lots of other entrants came in, the big guys, the big tech guys like the Salesforce and IBM and so forth were looking into this type of software. So I thought at that time you needed to make a move. You need to basically find a way to attach yourself to one of these big things, because this is not a standalone category. Like it needs to be part of a marketing cloud or a suite of services around it and so forth. So in probably like 2017, 18, we started looking at more seriously, like when somebody came inbound to look for an opportunity, we thought, it might be interesting. Yeah, it's just the right time.
Yeah.
And then in 2019, Vista Equity Group, we met with them and they were interested, and they were buying a company at the time called Acquia. Mm-hmm. So they first bought us, and they bought us into Acquia as an acquisition.
Yeah, and today you're working as a board member for that company.
I'm not a board member, but I am a chief science officer for Acquia.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so
that's perfect. Yeah. And not only this, but you have some other investments, right? So today we are in one of your basically investment here in May House, Sunnyvale, California. So like this is a Turkish food restaurant.
Right.
And I'm sure the audio is like, there's some background noise. So the restaurant is getting ready to be open in an hour actually. So basically the plays are going on, people are running around here right now. So like, how did you, like, what is next for you? Are you interested in food business? Like, are you interested in investing in restaurants? So is this special for you?
Yes, the restaurant or the food business is more of a passion for me. So I used to cook all the time in my house, invite a lot of guests. So then one of our friends came maybe like 4 or 5 years ago and said, everybody wants to get together around food, especially good Turkish food, which doesn't exist in the Bay Area. Why don't we do like one-night pop-ups, here and there? I said, okay, let's try it. So we did one, and then we did a second one, third one. So we did 10 of these events, which was basically one-night events and we sold tickets for about 150 people. And it became so crazy successful at the end. We would have an event in October, start selling tickets in June, and it would sell in 15 minutes. Like the tickets would go up for sale at 8 o'clock, 8:15, it's like over. So from that success, I also knew Koray and Revnak, my partners in this restaurant. We thought, we should turn this into a more permanent thing. Yeah. So I took my recipes, and they're great operators, and we got together and opened this. And the whole purpose here is to provide, a different view into the Turkish cuisine than what you would get elsewhere. You could elevate Turkish food just like there are a lot of Greek restaurants that elevated Greek food beyond the diner scene. Yeah. So that's our goal.
Yeah, and it's not easy to find the right Turkish food in Bay Area, right? So this restaurant is unique in that sense because everything is so delicious. So we are looking forward to that.
Thank you.
So we have a dinner tonight here as well. So one other thing that I want to ask you is, like for audience, basically we are talking about all this great stories, success and everything, but I'm pretty sure there is, like times that you had challenges and like it has been not always great, right?
Yeah.
Failure can be difficult yet incredible, valuable.
Yep.
So can you tell us a time where you had some, like where you felt defeat but you overcame, and how was it?
So I think The biggest thing is, there are problems you're trying to solve, and I mean, there's a problem to solve, and you're creating a way to solve it, right? And in some cases, it could be something that already exists. Like, for example, when Zoom came along, there was already WebEx and GoToMeeting and so forth. But Zoom kind of basically became too successful. That's like taking an old thing and making it better, right? And then there are other categories, like Airbnb came. Nothing like that existed before. They came in and they solved a latent problem that either people didn't know exist, or they could have solved it 6 years ago, 10 years ago, 20 years ago as well. But somehow they brought a new approach that didn't exist before, right? So those are the two paths to having a startup. And the second path, this kind of doing something new, is incredibly hard. So that's what I have done as well. Like, our approach was like, this customer data platform doesn't exist. When you go talk to investors or talk to Gartners and Forresters of the world, the analyst firms and so forth, they can't really put you in a category or in a magic quadrant or some sort of Forrester wave or something like that. So that creates a lot of challenge. Like, that basically, creating a category is incredibly hard and incredibly expensive. So I would say, one of the challenges that I ran into was we spent a lot of time and money educating the market and creating that category, and that was inefficient. So the amount of money we spent versus how much, what kind of outcome we got was kind of not that great from that perspective. But at the same time, you can just pat yourself in the back saying, like, I created this category as it exists today. It's a good thing. But those challenges, what I learned from that is, if I want to do something again, you need to leverage the system as well as you can. So, for example, if you're trying to sell to enterprise, those people at the enterprise, they listen to Forresters and Gartners of the world.
Sure.
So if you're going to do something like for example, I've done customer data platform, and one of the pieces of the software we had was campaign management. So if it was me today, rather than saying I have a customer data platform, it's a new thing and all that, I would have not went that way. I would have said, I have campaign management software with extended capabilities, and I would have positioned myself as a campaign management company with added benefits as a differentiation to win.
Different strategy of marketing.
Different strategy of marketing. Yeah. Whereas, the mistake I've done was, I basically said, this is a different category, it's new. So now you need to convince the analysts. Analysts don't remember your name. They can't put you anywhere. They can't grade you. You go to a customer, they don't understand because they haven't heard it. So people just repeat what they hear from other places multiple times and so forth. So I feel like the lesson that I learned is, like, if I do another software company or tech company, I would basically understand the system of how people buy, what makes it easy to sell and so forth, and basically create the strategy against that rather than saying I'm doing something novel. Which is harder to sell.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. I see.
I mean, one of our big selling propositions was machine learning and AI, for example. This was our message in 2010, 11, 12.
Yep.
And people just didn't understand it. I mean, today, again, it became a big thing right now.
Yeah.
But at that time, it was like, that sounds interesting. Can I try it? And now, like, when you say, okay, I need a free POC, do you have a try before you buy program? What is the ROI of that software? So when I hear those words, I'm like, okay, like, that's not the right way to sell.
Sure.
If somebody's asking for a free POC, it means that they don't know what they're buying, they need to test it and so forth, which is basically like, you can't scale it. It's expensive scale.
So you need to basically identify your marketing strategy and sell it accordingly.
Right.
Yeah. Okay.
And you always feel like when you have a product, when you're pushing something uphill, which means like, you need to have multiple meetings, convince someone, blah, blah, blah. You know when that happened versus that's a real hard sales process versus when somebody calls you and say, I've heard
They're
great things about
interested in
you.
that.
I want to buy your product.
Yeah.
Can you give me a price quote, blah, blah, blah. Then in that case, you're just taking an order, right?
Yes.
So you need to create an environment where you're taking orders, not selling.
Not selling it, yeah. Totally.
So that, like developing that feeling or having that,
It's
like some
hard.
people have it outright in their mind or I got it through experience.
Sure.
I think that was
No, it's
my
a
biggest
great
lesson
lesson
to learn.
learned.
Yeah.
It's a great thing to share actually.
Thank
so
you.
today, what key takeaway message you have for us? What do you want to leave with us?
For new startup founders, like my most important message is find a problem you feel passionate about, right? And that's the most important thing. What I think is the most important skill you need to have is grit, right? Like you need to, like when somebody kicks you and you're on the floor, like just get up and keep doing what you believe is right.
Yeah. So you have to believe in that. You have to be passionate
Yeah.
about it, and you have to just follow your
Right.
dream.
Because like when I was raising money or starting this company or quitting my job at Best Buy, everybody said don't do it. Somebody else can do the same thing. Go work for IBM. Blah blah blah. And it's like you basically are going against what people say basically. Yeah. So but you need to believe in that.
Believe in that and continue basically. So no, that's pretty important.
Yeah.
Well, Omer, thank you so much for being
You're
here
welcome.
today and hosting us in your restaurant.
Thank
That
you.
was a great conversation to learn from your experience.
Thank you.
So for everyone who is watching this video right now, thank you so much for watching us. And you know what to do. Don't forget to smash the like button, comments down below. Please continue subscribing to our YouTube channel and stay inspired, stay motivated, stay hyped. This is Startup Hype. Thank you.